All right. Ted Naiman here for Diet Doctor, and I'm at Metabolic Health Summit 2022. And I have to remind you that there are still tickets available online at metabolichealthsummit.com. So you can see the recorded talks from earlier today, which were awesome, by the way. And I'm here right now with Dr. Thomas Weimbs, who is a researcher right here in Santa Barbara. He's been here for a couple decades, and he's researching ketogenic diets and polycystic kidney disease. So, Dr. Weimbs, could you just tell everybody out there, what is polycystic kidney disease and why should anybody be researching it?
Yeah, good question, Ted. Thank you. It's a genetic disease that leads to kidney failure. It's one of the leading causes of kidney failure, genetically conditioned causes. And there's currently not really any treatment available that is highly effective. Patients typically progress to end-stage renal disease, so they need to be on dialysis afterwards, and if they're lucky, can get a kidney transplantation. So it's actually a very common disease. Most people have never heard of it, but it affects about 600,000 people in the U.S. alone, and many millions worldwide. So it's a fairly high impact disease, and we've been researching it for quite a while. And the research community has been growing quite a bit. There's now a lot of biotech and pharmaceutical companies trying to come up with more treatment options for it.
Very cool. And so are you doing human research, animal research, cell research? What kind of research exactly?
Yeah, we actually do everything. So, initially I started on working on PKD about 20 years or so ago. We started with basic mechanisms, trying to understand what is going wrong in the disease. Go on to animal models, mouse models, rat models with polycystic kidney disease, trying to tweak things and, different interventions. And by now we're actually also we're involved in clinical trials. So all the way from test tube to human, I would say.
Okay, very cool. So just in a nutshell, could you tell people how a ketogenic diet could possibly help kidney disease? What's the connection? How does it work? Just give us the easy version.
Yeah, so that's something we found in the lab doing animal studies when we first put mice with PKD on a caloric restriction. Turned out to be that it's not the caloric restriction that was important, but really the induction of the state of ketosis. So if you put them on a ketogenic diet, on a time-restricted diet, on acute fasting, it all was amazingly beneficial. Essentially, the cysts in the kidneys did not grow anymore. The kidneys looked essentially normal. And we were able to mimic those beneficial effects by just administering exogenous BHB, beta hydroxybutyrate, which was a bit of a surprise. I didn't quite expect that. So that's kind of how we went into this. We're investigating right now the exact molecular mechanisms, which mechanism is most responsible for the beneficial effects.
Very, very cool stuff. And I have a question. Are you concerned about protein quantities on these ketogenic diets for polycystic kidney disease?
Yeah, great question. So we have been working with a group of terrific renal dietitians to come up with a dietary intervention program specifically for PKD. It's called the Renew program for renal nutrition, and it rhymes with Renew Your Kidneys. We're actually using a plant-focused ketogenic diet, so little meat, less animal protein, and really for the reason that animal foods are much more acidifying. They lead to a very acidic urine pH. That's something we've also discovered, that this risk for crystal formation in the kidneys and risk for kidney stone formation makes the disease worse. So of course, we want to avoid this, and a plant-focused diet is much more alkalinizing. And there was a bit of a problem. People read our research papers and put themselves on ketogenic diets, but what you find on the internet is, usually very meat-heavy diets. So that may be something that's not ideal for kidney patients.
And so, just how effective is this compared to the standard of care for polycystic kidney disease, which sounds like it's basically nothing?
Yeah, so currently, all we have is anecdotal data. We do have one study that we just published. There was sort of a beta test, so not a clinical trial. Was a beta test of the dietary program with about 24 patients with polycystic kidney disease. It went over the summer for 3 months, and the results were really phenomenal. I would say we got fantastic feedback from the patients. Many of the biomarkers improved. Of course, people lost weight and just generally felt much better. And this program is now rolled out, open to the public. There are patients, in it right now, and we're also using this program for a clinical trial that we're planning that will hopefully, fingers crossed, start a little bit later this year. So this will be an actual controlled trial where we measure outcomes over the period of a year.
And so, if there are people out there who have polycystic kidney disease and they're kind of curious about this, is there like a website they could go to or a particular publication they could read or that sort of thing?
Right. Yeah. So we actually launched a company out of UC Santa Barbara. It's called Santa Barbara Nutrients, with the purpose to make a medical food available that contains or combines exogenous ketones together with citrate, an alkaline load, and there's calcium and magnesium in there to help inhibit the absorption of oxalate and inorganic phosphate. So we are also putting a lot of information on our on the website of Santa Barbara Nutrients. So I think that's a good place to start for people to get information, educational materials, and links to other sites as well.
And I think if I'm guessing correctly, you have a German accent. I believe you trained in Germany originally. What brought you over here, and what got you started on this whole polycystic kidney disease research anyway?
Right. Yeah. Great question. Yes, I'm from Germany. I can't hide the accent. So I got my undergrad education, my PhD in Germany. That was in biochemistry. Then I moved to the US to do a postdoctoral research at the University of California in San Francisco. From there, I moved to the Cleveland Clinic to start my first faculty position. And I was sort of approached by a family that is affected by PKD in Cleveland. They had tight connections with the Cleveland Clinics. They wanted to sponsor PKD research, and nobody was doing it at the time. So they figured out there's this new assistant professor that works with kidney cells, and essentially offered funding to hire a postdoctoral researcher in my lab to work on PKD. And so this project actually took off. So I wasn't initially planning to work on it, but we made some, I think, interesting contributions to the field early on, and it kind of took off from there.
Okay, well, it sounds like some very cool work you're doing. Thank you so much for your contribution to the field. It sounds like this is a disease that a lot more people need to be aware of, and a lot more people need to be aware of this option in particular. So thanks for talking to us. I really appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you very much, Ted.
Oh, one more question. You're a musician. Is that true?
Oh, yes. Am I known for that? I didn't know that. Yes, I play the saxophone. I play some jazz music, just for fun, with people actually that are in my department. So we're just hanging out, having a good time, for sure.
Awesome. I play bass myself, and I've played in a jazz band before. So I'm just like personally interested in that. But yeah, that's very cool. And thanks again for talking to us. Oh, and I think you're associated with this gentleman here.
Hi.
Hello. All right. So I'm here with Glenn Frommer. Did I pronounce your name correct?
Yeah.
Glenn Frommer. This gentleman is absolutely crazy. He's crazy. He's apparently cycling across the country trying to raise money and awareness for polycystic kidney disease. So could you please tell us all about yourself, why you're here, where you came from, why are you cycling across the country, why polycystic kidney disease? Go.
Yeah, and thank you for that introduction. I am a bit crazy. but crazy for a good cause. My name is Glenn Fromer. I am a 60-year-old male living in Vail, Colorado. I was diagnosed with PKD in 2014. And it was a secondary finding of an MRI for a back injury. So I didn't have any symptoms necessarily. And when the doc told me I had PKD, I said to him, just give me whatever drug you give to PKD patients, make it go away. And he said, no, that's not the way this works. This is an incurable, untreatable, progressively worsening disease. And you just have to wait for your kidneys to fail, and we'll put you on a transplant list. To me, that wasn't the right answer. So I decided to get more actively engaged in our community, got actively engaged in the PKD Foundation. I sit on their research grant committee, and every year we get research grant proposals from about 60 universities around the world looking for seed funding for PKD research. The unfortunate reality is, based on budgetary constraints, only 10% of those research grants get seed funding. And it is highly likely that the potential cure or treatment could be in the 90% of grants not getting funded. So there you have a problem. Not enough funding going into research into this disease. We need more money. So that gave birth to the Ride for PKD. It's a 5,300 mile, 213,000 feet of climbing, 18 state, 120-day ride across America. And for those who are watching this, thinking to themselves, the width of the U.S. is only 3,000 miles. Why is your ride 5,300? It's because it's not a straight line. The objective is, as you said, to build community and build awareness of the disease while we're raising money for research. The way to do that is to get to as many of the research universities around the country, to talk to them about research, like we're doing here with Thomas Weimbs' lab at UC Santa Barbara. We're going to be doing that across the country at universities doing research in the PKD. And we're going to be meeting with foundation chapters of the PKD Foundation all around the country to build our community and to build awareness of the disease. So it's a long route over a long period of time with the objectives of raising awareness and building community for the disease. So far, our objective is to raise $500,000 for the research program at the PKD Foundation. We've just crossed over 400,000, and we've just started cycling. We left San Francisco a week ago, so we're about 400 miles into the journey, and we're feeling pretty good about our chances of raising the full 500,000. And for anyone who's watching this, interested in maybe learning more about the disease or learning how they might participate, you can check out rideforpkd.org. It's a fully functioning website. The interactive route maps are there if you want to ride with me. Would love to have you join at any portion across the country. If you'd like to donate, you can donate through the site. If you'd like to volunteer and drive our RV, we'd love to have you along for the ride. Plenty of ways to participate in the ride.
That's so cool. That's so impressive. So you started in San Francisco. You're here now in Santa Barbara. When did you start? When are you going to be done? And how many miles a day do you have to ride on average?
Yeah, great question. So starting in San Francisco, we're heading down to Orange County. So we've got another couple of days of riding south. And then, as my friend likes to say, we're taking a hard left. And that hard left takes us eastbound across America, riding some beautiful parts, the Grand Canyon, Grand Escalante Staircase in Utah, the entire state of Colorado across the Rockies, just beautiful. Some of the amazing plain states of Kansas and Missouri. We're heading up to Chicago, down to Indianapolis, Cincinnati, Columbus, Pittsburgh, and then we get to Washington, D.C. in early August. Humidity might be high, temperatures are going to be sweltering, but we're going to spend a couple of days in Washington, D.C., hopefully on the steps of Capitol Hill, seeing Congress people and encouraging them to support research into this disease and also support what's called the Living Donor Protection Act to protect people who are willing to donate one of their healthy kidneys to somebody who's in need of a kidney. And then we'll ride up through Philadelphia, New York, ultimately to Boston. We get to Cape Cod, Massachusetts on September 1st, and we're going to have a big celebration party when we get there to celebrate the conclusion of the ride after 18 weeks of riding. We're going to average about 60 miles a day of riding, which, quite frankly, for most cyclists doesn't sound like a lot, but when you have to do it the next day and the next day after that and the next day after that, it kind of builds. So we feel like we're in good shape now. I think probably by day 30, we'll think differently. but we're going to average 60 a day and try to make it across the country in that 4-month period.
Wow, I mean it's so impressive. Have you done any crazy long rides like this before in the past? I mean, how do you prepare for this kind of thing?
Yeah, it's interesting because actually putting together the ride for PKD, there were a couple of things that came together. I am an avid cyclist. I have been for 35 years, so cycling is a passion. I'm also a venture capitalist. I invest in startup businesses, and I've run businesses myself. So having that ability to start up a business is a little bit like starting up a charity. And I wanted to do something philanthropic. And of course, when you write checks to needing organizations, that's a great way. You can write a check for $100, terrific. However, if you invest that $100 in something like the Ride for PKD to help promote it, and you can generate a 5x or 10x return on that investment because other people are donating their money to support you, that's much more effective to get more money into the Polycystic Kidney Disease Foundation's research program. So it was a little bit of the intersection of loving the ride, wanting to do philanthropy, understanding how to start up businesses. That gave birth to the Ride for PKD. We did a lot of logistics planning, and now we've finally started the ride.
Just how big of a team does it take to pull off this ride? I mean, is it just like one station wagon with a spare inner tube follow you around, or like how does that work?
Yeah, this is more Meet the Millers than it is Chevy Chase vacation. So no station wagon. This is an RV. My wife has been a tremendous partner for me the whole way. She is my co-captain. She's driving the RV. Each day we move that RV 60 miles further down the road, and I'll be riding my bike to meet her at the next RV campground. But a big shout out to friends and family who volunteered their time and their energy to support this. It's really humbling for me to sort of put this Ride for PKD out there and then have friends and family respond to it with, I want to be a part of it. And so everyone in the family, I've got 3 amazing children and their partners all involved. My 2 sisters have been providing public relations and advertising support. I've got a cousin who is a social media expert who's providing that. These jerseys were designed by my niece, who's very artistic and a great designer. Everyone's sort of chipped in to support the ride, and it's really a family affair. So I can't thank our team and particularly friends and family who donated their time enough for all the support they've given us.
Well, it's so cool what you're doing. I'm really impressed. Thank you so much. And I just think it's great that you're bringing so much awareness to polycystic kidney disease. So again, thank you so much. And thank you for talking to us today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Check us out on rideforpkd.org. On behalf of the 600,000 Americans currently suffering with PKD, we thank you for your support.